Dear audience, my name is Lisa. I am the video narrator of the Palmer Corporations. If President Trump do not fund the government and pay millions of Americans who run the government, it will be a disastrous decision that will enforce martial law and destroy the civil rights of the people. This will be an unbearable situation like you could never imagine. Many Americans depend on pension checks, disability checks, military checks, unemployment checks, Social Security checks, tax return checks, welfare checks, food stamp cards in government offices, and hospitals for government aids. Please pray that this horrible situation gets better and comes to a finality before there are many deaths and suffer destructive harm the people who will be seriously harmed, especially those who collect welfare checks and food stamps benefits that are considered the poorest Americans. This shutdown will affect all countries worldwide. Thank you for listening. May God bless you and keep your faith strong. Please prepare yourself with food supplies because we believe this is going to be hell on earth. Thank you so much for listening. God bless.
As the partial government shutdown enters week 3 with no end in sight, we're getting a picture of how the fight in Washington could affect people across the rest of the country. If Congress and the White House can't come to a deal to fund a quarter of the government by February, millions of Americans who receive benefits from the country's food stamp program, SNAP, risk having their assistance cut off. The IRS has also been forced to send home 90% of its employees ahead of its busiest season. That could delay tax refunds. A recent piece in the Washington Post breaks down the potential consequences of the shutdown. Economic policy reporter Damian Paletta co-wrote that piece, and he joins me now from Washington. Damian, thanks so much for joining us. Break down for us what is at stake for families, first of all, if the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, does not get funding before next month. How many Americans could this affect?
Sure. So there's around 38 million Americans, many of them children and elderly people, who receive monthly benefits under SNAP, a couple $100s a month. And there's been studies that show this money really helps prevent people, from sliding even further into poverty. And so the issue is they only have funded the SNAP program through January. And since the Department of Agriculture is not funded under this current lapse in Congress, there is no more money for this program as of February. Now, they have some reserves that could maybe cover, 60% of the monthly balance, but they'd have to decide who would get that money, whether, everyone would have to take a cut or some people just wouldn't get anything. And they're scrambling right now to sort that out because they did not anticipate this shutdown to go on as long as it has.
Well, so if the shutdown continues, is the government planning to implement any measures to make sure that people are able to get food? I mean, what can be done?
Well, they've never faced a situation like this before. I mean, there simply is no money for the program. They have not funded the Department of Agriculture, and so I suppose they could, institute some sort of emergency, but that would require, Congress to become involved and appropriate the money. And right now, everything is bogged down over the debate about the wall. So they are scrambling right now to figure this out. They only have a few more weeks before, the impact would hit. And like I mentioned, we're talking 38 million Americans. Obviously, many of them low income and poor, and they've never been in a situation like this where it risked being cut off immediately.
Well, in your article, you say that not only will this disruption hurt families who depend on food stamps, but also grocery stores and other businesses. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely, yeah. So for most people, this money these aren't food stamps in the, like people would think of 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. These are, for most people, these are like credit cards they get where money is automatically deposited each month. And many people go and immediately go shopping at the grocery store with the money they get because they need to refill their refrigerators or their pantries. And so businesses, will really get hit. I mean, we're talking $4 or $5 billion in February that would not be spent because that money would not be put on the cards. So there would be a lot of impact both at large grocery stores and smaller grocers around the country in every state.
Yeah, and I just keep going back to that figure that you quoted at the outset, the 38 million Americans. It is really hard to get your head around just how many Americans this will impact. But I also want to ask you about what's going on at the IRS. How will this impact the millions who will be filing their taxes in the coming months?
Right. So last year on January 29th was the first day that Americans could begin filing their taxes. And as we know, people that think they're going to get tax refunds, they tend to file first because they want that money back. Last February, about $140 billion in tax refunds was paid out by the IRS. Now, the IRS has, sent home 90% of its staff without pay indefinitely because they are also not funded under this government shutdown. We're expecting to hear from them early this week their plan for the tax filing season. That will include whether they're going to process tax refunds. Last year, they said they would not process any tax refunds during a shutdown, but they're under, incredible pressure to reverse that because of the potential backlash. So we might even hear whether they're going to have to move the April 15th filing deadline because they won't have enough personnel. So, a lot of that we'll find out in the coming days, but that's a tremendous amount of money that would be sucked out of the economy next month if Congress or, the IRS or the White House doesn't sort this out quickly.
Right. And on that point, so every year the government pays out billions in tax refunds. What will a delay in returns mean for the greater economy without that money in circulation?
Yeah, I mean, it's $140 billion in February.
Yeah.
It's with a B, okay?
Right.
And that's a tremendous amount of money. That could single-handedly, push the country towards a recession if that money is not put into the economy. A lot of people get their tax refunds and go immediately spend it on something, or they pay down their credit card. This money gets pumped back into the economy quickly, and we've never had a situation before where this just doesn't happen.
Use the R word, though. I want to be very clear here. I mean, is that a realistic possibility that, in fact, not having that money in circulation could, in fact, drag down things economically so far that it could push the country into recession?
So the economists that I've talked to said they believe the first quarter of 2019, the first 3 months, will not be as strong as we saw in 2018. And if you add to that this idea that this money will not be put into circulation, this $140 billion, then you're pushing it really close to a possible recession scenario. Recession means that essentially that the government does not grow and it contracts. The economy contracts over the course of a period. So, as these things begin to snowball, so if people don't get their tax refunds, they stop buying things, then companies get hit and they don't reinvest or hire new workers. All those things can kind of collide into a big economic mess. And I think we're anticipating that will happen in February unless all these things get resolved quickly.
So I know you said that we're waiting to hear from the IRS here in the coming days, but has the government outlined any kind of plan for the upcoming tax season if the shutdown continues?
So last year they did. Last year, as part of their contingency plan that they published, they said that they would not issue any tax refunds during a government shutdown. They have not issued their plan for this year. And usually this is around the time of year when they say, because we're almost up against tax filing season, all the deadlines and when things will go into effect. And so, like I said, we're expecting that maybe Monday or Tuesday, and there's going to be a tremendous amount of interest and scrutiny and possibly even stock market reaction to whatever they say. Because, like I said, this is a lot of people, this is a lot of money, and this is a lot of money that gets put into the economy immediately.
Really sobering to hear about the possible consequences if this shutdown continues. Damian Paletta, thanks so much for sharing your reporting and for being with us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Food is, of course, a basic need, so the lack of it prompts reactions like these.
It's gonna get crazy. That's how I feel. And especially children are home. They're home on vacation. They're going to need food. How are you going to feed your kids?
She's talking about federal food benefits like SNAP, sometimes called by its old name, food stamps, being reduced or suspended as part of the federal government's shutdown. She doesn't receive benefits herself, but she's in Hollis, Queens. It and nearby neighborhoods, Jamaica and St. Albans, have the highest number of people who are food insecure in the city. They don't know where their next meal will come from. Not everybody out here is on government assistance for food help, but it does mean just about everyone knows somebody who is.
It's going to affect everybody. Especially the people that really get it and need it and have a lot of kids, it's going to really affect them.
The Department of Agriculture, which administers the program, has frozen its website for the shutdown, but it said that families on SNAP will receive their benefits for January. But other similar programs aren't guaranteed to last as long.
Most of the people use EBT in here.
He's a small businessman whose bodega relies on spending from EBT. Those are the cards that SNAP recipients use to buy food.
We're going to be losing a lot of business. That affects all businesses a lot.
And it's got places like City Harvest, which moves leftover food from restaurants to places like food banks and food pantries. It's got them on alert.
They don't know when their next meal is going to be, even on a good day. So if they're without their SNAP benefits, they're really in sad shape.
Sad shape indeed. And the USDA, which again administers these programs, points out that it has kept about 70% of staff on the payroll since the shutdown began, but after day 5, that number reduces just to 5% of all their employees will be available to help administer the programs. All the more reason why there's a lot of concern and a lot of people saying, please, let's reopen the government as soon as possible.
New threats by President Trump regarding the partial federal government shutdown now in its 3rd week. The president now says he's willing to let the shutdown last for months or even years.
We told the president we needed the government open. He resisted. In fact, he said he'd keep the government closed for a very long period of time, months or even years.
Major, go ahead. Sure.
Mr. President, Senator Schumer came out and said that the meeting from his point of view and Speaker Pelosi's was contentious. He also said, you said in the meeting, this is him quoting you, I just want to check, that the shutdown could go on for months or even a year or longer. Did you say that? And
I did.
Is that your assessment of where we are?
Absolutely, I said that. I don't call it a shutdown. I call it doing what you have to do.
President Trump said that may mean keeping the government closed for months or even years.
If we have to stay out for a very long period of time, we're going to do that.
He dug in on demands for his key campaign promise and insisted for the first time that he won't let Congress be the barrier to building a wall.
I may do it, but we can call a national emergency and build it very quickly.
A national emergency would let the president tap Pentagon funds to begin wall construction without congressional approval.
The president also suggested he could build the wall without congressional approval by declaring a national emergency.
The president also said if Democrats in Congress don't give him $5.6 billion for construction of a border wall, he could use emergency powers to divert Pentagon funds for that purpose.
We can call a national emergency because of the security of our country, absolutely. No, we can do it. I haven't done it. I may do it. I may do it.
Even as hundreds of thousands of federal workers fret about missing their next paycheck, Mr. Trump's cabinet secretaries, Vice President Pence, and other senior administration officials are due to receive a roughly $10,000 raise starting tomorrow because of a quirk in the law.
I heard you use the word crisis. I heard you use the word emergency, citing this Post piece. So is this a signal that the president will declare one at some point, perhaps this week?
Well, as he has said, it's something that he's looking at and considering.
I may declare a national emergency dependent on what's going to happen over the next few days.
Right, and on that point, so every year the government pays out billions in tax refunds. What will a delay in returns mean for the greater economy without that money in circulation?
Yeah, I mean, it's $140 billion in February. It's with a B, okay?
Right.
And that's a tremendous amount of money. That could single-handedly, push the country towards a recession if that money is not put into the economy. A lot of people get their tax refunds and go immediately spend it on something, or they pay down their credit card. This money gets pumped back into the economy quickly, and we've never had a situation before where this just doesn't happen.
Use the R word, though. I want to be very clear here. I mean, is that a realistic possibility that, in fact, not having that money in circulation could, in fact, drag down things economically so far that it could push the country into recession?
This idea that this money will not be put into circulation, this $140 billion, then you're pushing it really close to a possible recession scenario. Recession means that essentially that the government does not grow and it contracts. The economy contracts over the course of a period. So, as these things begin to snowball, so if people don't get their tax refunds, they stop buying things, then companies get hit and they don't reinvest or hire new workers. All those things can kind of collide into a big economic mess. And I think we're anticipating that will happen in February unless all these things get resolved quickly.
Your campaign promising supporters that Mexico is going to pay for the wall and that the wall was going to be made of concrete. You just said earlier that the wall could be made of steel, and right now our government is shut down over a demand from your administration that the American taxpayer pay for the wall. So how can you say you're not failing on that promise to your supporters?
Very nice question, so beautifully asked, even though I just answered it.
You didn't
answer. Look, let me just tell you, excuse me, are you ready? Are you ready? I just told you that we just made a trade deal, and we will take in billions and billions of dollars, far more than the cost of the wall. The wall is peanuts compared to what the value of this trade deal is to the United States. As far as concrete, I said I was going to build a wall. I never said, I'm going to build a concrete. I said I'm going to build a wall. Just so you don't, because I know you're not into the construction business, you don't understand something. We now have a great steel business that's rebuilt in the United States. Steel is stronger than concrete.
In the U.S. Capitol, it's do not enter, stay out, closed for business. If you come to D.C. to visit, you can visit the Lincoln Memorial, but the toilets are closed, the gift shop is closed, and the park police patrolling and protecting this area, they're not getting paid. We're into the third week now of this government shutdown. 800,000 federal workers furloughed or working without pay. And as every day progresses, the concern is that the fallout is going to spread. A new day of the government shutdown bringing new concerns about the impact on Americans, especially those relying on the federal government to get by. One of the programs in jeopardy, food stamps. Nearly 39 million people use it to feed their families, and it's quickly running out of funding.
I won't be able to come in here and buy my groceries.
Getting married? Lovebirds in the nation's capital may have to put those wedding bells on hold after the Marriage Bureau that issues licenses in D.C. was closed.
Empty pockets of all personal effects, please.
The paychecks for TSA officers won't land in their bank accounts later this week if the government still has the out-of-office message. Some of those screeners calling out sick in protest, though the TSA union is urging them not to.
The standoff is also now affecting travelers. Wait times are up at many airports as some screeners call out sick rather than work without pay.
Flyers at New York's LaGuardia Airport yesterday had to wait in nearly hour-long security lines. The TSA blamed a higher-than-expected number of travelers coupled with mismanaged resources for the delays. But the agency is worried lines will get longer if more TSA screeners call out sick due to the ongoing government shutdown. TSA officials are concerned Friday's payroll deadline, when screeners will miss their first paychecks, could be a tipping point. Many of the more than 51,000 screeners cannot afford to miss a check, and officials fear they may not come to work.
The Airline Pilots Association calling on President Trump to end it, concerned that with air traffic controllers potentially and also TSA officers potentially working without pay, it puts the nation's airspace at risk.
800,000 federal workers are not being paid. Farmers aren't getting their government subsidies. Pilots are warning about airline security as TSA officers work without paychecks. Christine Vittel, a single mother, works for the TSA at Chicago O'Hare.
I live 39 miles away from the airport. That's one way. My gas is what takes up my money, right? I could go probably one more pay period without getting paid, but most people can't go one more day.
The president doesn't understand that we are human beings. We are people. Federal workers, that's just like, words, federal workers. No. I am the federal worker. He is the federal worker. We are people. We have bills to pay. We have food we need to eat to survive just like everybody else. It's not a game to us. I mean, it seems like it's a game to him. Oh, I'll keep the government shut down for months, for years. Well, what about the 800,000 people? Do you even care? Do you have a heart?
800,000 federal employees have been furloughed or are working without pay. The Smithsonian's museums, the National Zoo, and National Gallery are closed. You'll also see nothing on the live web feed of the National Zoo's Panda Cam, which ceased broadcasting on Wednesday. Most NASA employees are on furlough, except for those deemed essential to, quote, prevent imminent threats to human life or the protection of property, though they are working without pay.
This government shutdown, which has taken place, many people are undermining it. But what I'm going to share with you is going to show you that millions of people are about to face a crisis and they do not know it. If you don't start growing your own crops, if you don't try and find your own land and start to do your own gardening, you're going to be in a tough situation, my friends. Listen to what President Trump has just spoken from his own lips, and I'm going to also share with you what's happening right now to millions of Americans who are affected by the partial government shutdown. Observe.
Have you considered using emergency powers to grant yourself authorities to build this wall without congressional approval? And second,
yes,
on
I
Mexico,
have.
you have?
Yes, I have. And I can do it if I want.
So you don't need congressional approval to build the wall?
No, we can use them. Absolutely. We can call a national emergency because of the security of our country. Absolutely. No, we can do it. I haven't done it. I may do it. I may do it. But we can call a national emergency and build it very quickly. And it's another way of doing it. But if we can do it through a negotiated process, we're giving that a shot.
So is that a threat hanging over the Democrats?
I never threaten anybody. But I am allowed to do that, yes.
Second question.
Called a national emergency.
The question was clearly asked. Have you considered using emergency powers?
To grant yourself authorities to build this wall without congressional approval.
His answer.
Second
Yes,
on
I have.
Mexico. You have?
Yes, I have. And I can do it if I want. Absolutely. We can call a national emergency. We can do it. I haven't done it. I may do it. I may do it.
You heard it for yourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, let's ask and find out what do presidential emergency powers entail. Let's go to Google. Number one, he can assume the position of being the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. This simply translates to martial law. This state of emergency was only enabled when the nation is at war. But thanks to Bush, a president no longer needs to wait for war in order to enact martial law. When national emergency is declared, the president can choose to do this. During a state of presidential emergency, the president can also sign or veto legislation. He can convene or adjourn Congress. He can grant reprieves and pardons. He can receive ambassadors. There's other things that a president can do. But we're not talking about these ones. Let's observe the situation as a whole and let's see exactly where the world is heading, where the United States is heading. Observe this. Headline reads, millions face delayed tax refunds, cuts to food stamps as White House scrambles to deal with shutdown's consequences. First paragraph. Food stamps for 38 million low-income Americans would face severe reductions, and more than $140 billion in tax refunds are at risk of being frozen or delayed if the government shutdown stretches into February. Widespread disruptions that threaten to hurt the economy. I'm going to entertain you with the third paragraph. Observe, it says, thousands of federal programs are affected by the shutdown, but few intersect with the public as much as the tax system and the Department of Agriculture's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, the current version of food stamps. Ladies and gentlemen, millions of people are affected by these government programs. Millions of Americans live off of food stamps. Millions of them, that is their livelihood. They deal with these government food programs. Should the shutdown go further into February, it means that the state of the nation is going to be far worse for those people, especially who are not receiving their tax refunds and those who are depending upon the food stamps. Here's what you gotta think about. Many Americans are terrible when it comes to spending money. Many of them don't know how to save money, and most of them blow all the money that they have, the little money that they have, especially during the Christmas season. During the Christmas season, many people go broke. They spend, and after this, everything goes downhill. And then they're putting their hands out and they're waiting for the food stamps. Now, when you look at all of this and you put all of this now into perspective, where is the nation going as a whole? If Trump is considering the construction of the wall at the southern border a national emergency, and he has just said that he can be able to entertain presidential powers, do you know what that means? That means if he can declare a state of emergency to exercise presidential powers, he will. And I don't think that we should take these statements lightly. He has made it clear that he is going to do whatever he can to have the wall built. And he said, I'm going to have the government partially shut down for as long as it takes until that wall is built. It doesn't matter who gets affected in between. It's the people, ladies and gentlemen, that get affected. It's the middle class people that get affected. These rich billionaires, these politicians, these people who run the show, they don't care about you. All you are to them is just a number. All you are to them is just an asset. It's a game of chess that is being played. The first group that always gets the first hit are the pawns. And that is what you are, is just a pawn. You need to now start thinking outside the box. Go off grid. Go and exercise country living. Country living is going to be one of the best methods of survival that people can possibly go into. If you can find like-minded people, go together. Do not go with people who you're not going to trust. I strongly urge that Christians who have the same mind, who are grounded in the faith, move together. If you can find people who are grounded in the Lord Jesus Christ, go with them. Go into country living. Exercise country living now and start getting yourself into the mindset of living a simple life and possibly downsizing. That is ultimately what you're going to have to think about. It may not be the best compared to city life. However, you are going to be way better off out in the country than in the city. We all need to start preparing ourselves in that state of mind, and we need to start preparing to leave now. In other words, I'm saying get ready to flee out of the cities. In fact, this is a command that is given directly from Jesus' own words. He said, flee into the mountains, because there is a persecution that's coming. And if they persecute you in one city, flee into the next. And keep fleeing and keep fleeing. In other words, the pilgrim journey to the kingdom of heaven is going to come with strife and with many persecutions and many struggles. Many Christians who believe that they are going to be raptured or escape the tribulation of time, you're going to be in for a rude awakening when you begin to see dreadful signs and plagues falling upon the earth. You're going to be scared because now all hope of escaping the tribulation has been crushed. We are not greater than our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He went through tribulation. He was persecuted. All of his apostles suffered persecution and suffered hatred. What better are you than them? You're not going to escape this tribulation. A crisis is looming in the horizon. Do not disregard these things and just cast them aside and take them as being simply, he didn't mean it. No, he's not going to do it. Trump would never do such a thing. Here is something also to consider. The unemployment benefits claims has been rising week after week after week after week ever since the partial government shutdown. On this very article, observe this paragraph. It says, and I quote, jobless claims increased to 231,000 in the week ended December 29, 2018, above the 220,000 median estimate of economists. This is what the Labor Department figures are showing. By this, ladies and gentlemen, you clearly see that people are beginning to hurt. The middle class people are beginning to hurt. Right where their pockets are, that is where they are being hurt. And check this out. Should President Trump declare a state of national emergency, he can freeze all the banks. Your accounts could be frozen. So that means it doesn't matter how much money you have in your bank account. If you choose to go and try to withdraw money from the ATM or from the bank machine, you will get absolutely blocked because you will have zero access to your own personal money. The question now ultimately is, what exactly does the future look like for the United States of America? Is there any type of light? Are things going to get better? Well, let's look at things from the biblical side of things, because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not trying to burst your bubble, but if you thought that everything is going to be normal and things will go back to being the way they were in the good old days, you are in for a rude awakening. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines, and pestilences, and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. My friends, my brothers, O Christians, time is too short. Probation is closing. Probation is closing. I can't stress this enough, my friends. Probation is closing, and Jesus Christ is coming. Heaven is at the door. It's at our fingertips. Heaven's door is right around the corner. What will cause you to fall? What will cause you to give up your heavenly rights for earthly gains? The nations are angry, ladies and gentlemen. The nations are in distress. The world's problems are too much. Your leaders can't fix the world's problems. They are filled with anxiety because of the problems which are falling upon them. Listen to this Bible verse. And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth.
Good evening. My name is Marlon Palmer. I am the president of Palmer International World Companies and End Time Angel Message. I have a special message for my audience. Today, you're going to learn some things that you have never learned. Ladies and gentlemen, although I have some concern about President Trump and some of the things and the way he governs the country, I have to agree with him. You must have a border wall. You cannot live in a country without a door. This is insane. Whether you're Democrats or Republicans. You know, I do have some problem the way he is doing what he needs to do, whether there should be a shutdown or not. But you must have a border wall. People cannot enter the country. Maybe, if you would have gotten my video call, End Time Angel Message, my DVD, you could have learned a lot of things and learned how to prepare for what is coming. Because what is coming is more than what you can believe. You need to prepare yourself for the end times, for all the great things that's coming. You know, no one in the world can live without a wall. There's a wall and a door on your house. You must protect the country. The country must be protected from terrorism because people just cannot keep coming into the country. This is insane. All these Democrats who believe that it is plausible that people continue to come into the country is insane. You can't have criminals, gangs, drug dealers, murderers coming into the country. I don't live in America. I used to live there, but you can't have it. Look at all these millions and millions of people coming into the country. Millions, thousands. I don't know how many people. Just look at it. It's insane. Where is America? And you know what? These people are mostly men, grown men, 25 years old, 20 years old, maybe 28 years old. These are hardcore criminals. You can look at them. They're cursing. They're grabbing their crotch. They're doing all these dirty things. They're just men. Look at the front line. You don't see women and little kids. These are grown men walking into the country with no passport, a free trip to the United States. But before they come to the United States, they try to get into Costa Rica. No, we don't want them here. Stay where you are. They're from Mexico. They're from Honduras. Look at this man grabbing his crotch. You know, and this type of thing. Showing the finger signs. All this type of thing. Is this the type of people you want in your country? No. We don't want these people. You know, these people are criminals. Look what they do. They try to rush the border guards to run their way into the United States. These are not people who are looking for refugees. You must have a wall. These people need to be arrested. They're hardcore criminals. And if America don't protect itself, America will suffer another terrorist. Look at this woman running with her children. The children and the mothers are not running to America. They're maybe following the crowd. But it is the gangs that's climbing the fence and the criminals. They need to be thrown out. I don't want these type of people. These are people that's coming from Mexico. They're coming from El Salvador. They're coming from Panama. They ain't coming from Costa Rica. Look at this guy. Look at this. Look at him grabbing his crotch and holding his hands up. Look at these thieves. These are the type of people you don't want in your country. War is coming, and America is trying to prepare. You need to prepare. Whether America have to do it forcefully, you have to protect the country. Everything is under attack. America is under attack 24 hours a day. Terrorists are constantly trying to hurt that country. America is sticking its nose all over the world trying to force countries to do what they need to do. Yes, America is the beast of revelation. So that's why they must protect their country. Martial law is coming, and people need to get ready. It is a war coming like you can never believe. Whether it's this time or in the future, it is right around the corner. Whether it will be with... Listen to me, let me tell you something. Your checks are not going to come. After the 1st of February, your checks won't come. Your government checks won't come. Your welfare checks, your food stamps, your disability checks. These things are going to stop. It's going to be a war. You need to get ready. I don't want this to happen. I know a war is coming. When the people has no money, the country go crazy. But we need to prepare. Go to the grocery store and buy all your food. Get some of your money out. Get $2,000 to $3,000 out before the country ends up like Venezuela, where people cannot do anything. A war is coming. People will be arrested in the street. There'll be fights and rumors of wars everywhere. Whether it happens, you should always have food in your house as the major necessity because the stores are going to be robbed. Look at these people walking with the food in the street that they stole from the stores. This is not, America will come down so bad. It will be like Venezuela. There'll be death everywhere. There'll be ambulances and people looking for help. It will be a murderous thing. We want you to prepare. Hell on earth is coming. And it's going to be something like you could never imagine. Jesus is coming soon. And these are the signs of the end. If you're looking for relief, you're going to fool yourself. There will be no relief. Dear viewers, I want to share something with you. Over 30 to 40 million Americans are on food stamps and will suffer hunger if this crisis continue, especially our lovely little children and our poorest family in America. Many, at least 30 to 40 million Americans also is on food stamps and welfare. Many people also get tax returns and government checks and unemployment checks, but this year they will not get it. Our lovely, beautiful little children are suffering. And 1 to 5 kids don't have the food that they need. Times will be hard if this crisis continue. I don't know how long it will be. I hope it doesn't continue. I will suffer just like many Americans will suffer, even in my country in Costa Rica. A crisis is coming, and I want you to get ready. Food is life. Food is everything. Food is everlasting happiness. Without food, we cannot survive. Eating a wonderful meal with your family is one of the greatest love that God could have given to man. We need food. I hope this crisis ends. Prepare yourself. The war is coming. And we don't know if this is the war, but we pray to God our little ones do not suffer. Get yourself together. Buy your groceries, buy your food, and get your money. A time is coming.
I'm tired when I'm hungry. Sometimes I feel really sad because we don't have food for many days. When I'm hungry, I don't have energy to do my homework. When I'm hungry, I get really, really mad and I get a headache. If I'm really hungry, like haven't ate for a really long time, my body starts to shake.
I do have, 3 children, and work right now is really slow to provide for them right now. I have a degree in criminal justice, and to be going through this part of my life to where I need help with food, I didn't know I would ever be here in my life. I have $0 in my account, and I'm just, don't even know where I'm gonna get the money for the food.
I have 6 kids, I'm unemployed, so it's kind of hard to put food in the house with 6 children, and I only get a certain income a month.
All right, so it's no surprise to many, like myself, that if you look at some of the photos coming from even the mainstream media of this migrant caravan headed up through Mexico to the U.S. border right now, most of these people are men. Most of them are men. I'd say about 80%. Now, of course, you do have some women and children in there. But, I mean, look at these photos. Mostly men. Mostly men. You don't even have to look. I mean, it's right there. It's right there in your face. Mostly men. Mostly men. This is an invasion. These are men waving their country's flag, coming in droves of thousands and thousands of people, burning the U.S. flag, by the way, in some cases, as seen here. Wonderful. Oh, wonderful. And drawing a swastika on the flag. Yeah, these are the exact type of people you want in your country, right? Meanwhile, the mainstream media is trying to claim that these are refugee seekers, when we have, really, you could read any mainstream alternative article about this migrant caravan, it doesn't matter, and you have most of them saying they're seeking better jobs. I mean, just read any article with any interview with any of these migrants. You know, they all say, my goal is to find better work and a better future, leaving to escape unemployment and crime. Neither qualifies as refugee or asylum seeker status. So if you're fleeing a crime-ridden area like Chicago, for instance, you can't go to Mexico and say, oh, I'm a refugee. Although this is the case, the mainstream media will go on and on about how these are asylum-seeking refugees, even though they admit in their own articles that no, these are just people looking for better work. And that's the problem with mass immigration. Not only does it destroy the culture of the nation and totally eradicate any sense of national identity, because most of these migrants don't assimilate into the culture, admittedly. Even second generation down in many cases won't assimilate into the culture because they form their own ghettos and their own communities, and they just live amongst one another. But not only that, it's bad for the average American worker. You know, you have Central Americans that will come and work for a much lower wage, and the corporations love this. That's why the neoconservatives love mass immigration. That's why the Democrats love mass immigration, because these are your corporate bought and paid for politicians that are for immigration. They don't care if the migrants are burning the American flag. They don't care if the migrants are all military-aged men and there's thousands of them, as if it were an invasion without guns. They don't care if most of these men are waving their home country flag instead of the American flag. They don't care. They're in it for the money. And they also don't care that even the mainstream media and leftist activists and SJWs will be the first to admit that within these caravans, there's a lot of violence and rape and crime. Yeah, but we're not bringing that into the United States, though. But yeah, there's a lot of crime in the caravans, and we have to make sure that, you know, the women aren't getting raped by all those men. But that doesn't happen at the same time. Yeah, let's hold two contradictory points in our mind. I think that's called cognitive dissonance. Yeah, I think that's what that's called. And look, like I said in my previous video, we're supposed to believe that this isn't being orchestrated, that we're supposed to believe that this is organic and that this is grassroots. When you have videos like this of organizers handing out cash to some of these migrants, right here, he's handing out cash, women and children first. Yeah, look at all that money. I mean, that just looks shady to me. I mean, I don't know what is going on here. It just looks shady to me. It looks like this is organized and that it's being funded by a higher power. And I don't mean a spiritual higher power when I say higher power. Also, interesting to note, there's photos of some of these guys wearing like socialist sort of cultural Marxist t-shirts, like the future is female. I just, you know, I just don't see guys from Honduras wearing a shirt like that. I mean, I'm sorry. Really? I thought Honduras was crime-ridden. Like, you get bullied or even killed wearing a shirt like that in Honduras if it's that bad, I would imagine. If it's anything like the Middle East. So, it's just weird. It doesn't make any sense to me. And it points toward that some of these people are actually, what I suspect, has been rumors of this, that a lot of them are actually just Americans that are organizing this, you know, affiliated with NGOs. And many of them are of Honduran descent, you know, but they're, you know, American citizens even, some of them that are organizing these migrants and you know, corralling these people and bringing them up into the United States just in time for the midterm elections. Now, I want to address as well, I had some comments.
For anyone who doubts Donald Trump when he talks about guarding against illegal immigrants who sneak into the U.S. from Mexico every single day, consider the Rio Grande riverbank here in the small town of Roma, Texas.
They're spread out.
Somewhere down there, in the thick of all this, U.S. Border Patrol agents have just spotted something.
Right where I'm at, I'm talking to you. It's a cabin.
Someone, maybe more, hiding deep in the reeds at River's Edge.
Would you step back, please? Hey!
Soon enough, they're captured and handcuffed. Two men who just dared cross into America. The 11th and 12th illegal migrants found right here on this day by lunchtime. A place where there's no wall, no fence, just that river separating the U.S. from Mexico. At least, that's all there is for now. If Donald Trump has his way, one of these will be the kind of thing that'll soon change that border forever. Outside San Diego, they are the freshly minted prototypes for his long-promised border wall. Catching the eye already of Border Patrol agents kicking the tires, checking them out. Each with pros and cons, slight variations, but a key theme. All of them are imposing. All of them are meant to be high enough and tough enough to stop illegal border crossings into America. The winning design still TBA. A few steps south of those prototypes, there is a wall. In this part of Southern California, it's been in place for years. It's ramshackle. And repairs where migrants have cut their way through it are everywhere. 20 minutes to the west. And part of it even runs into the Pacific. And even on this day, here, it doesn't do its job. These three, now held by Border Patrol, told us they'd fled Gambia in April and had just now squeezed through the old fence right where the water meets the beach. Trump's wall, when and if it's ever built, is meant to stop all of it. But at what price? Back in Texas, a state rich in cross-border culture, with its fast-growing Hispanic population, El Paso typifies the mounting opposition to Trump's wall.
So who is that?
That's Border Patrol. That is one of their helicopters.
Because we're standing here near the border, they come out to check us out?
Well, they do that, yes, because of that, and also they do that in a regular way.
Human rights activist Fernando Garcia took us just outside the city where there's been a wall for a decade and where Trump's plans to make it bigger and more imposing are met with resentment on both sides.
Cuando Donald Trump se vaya de aquí, van a poner una reja más chiquita y todos van a estar cruzando.
Y van a quitar esto cuando se vaya Trump. Ándale.
Cuando se venga otro presidente.
That when Trump leaves, they're gonna tear down this wall and they're just gonna put a fence so people will be able to come across.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
For millions of Hispanic Americans, Trump's bigger, stronger wall is little more than a big, ugly symbol.
We're talking about hate, and we talk about issues of race, and we're talking about xenophobia. That's what is the essence of these walls.
Do you believe Latinos will rise up and register and vote and change the future of Texas because of this wall and because of immigration policy?
I don't have any doubt that Latinos are going to be more active politically. And I do believe that there's going to be a major backlash, a political backlash.
And though Trump talks about a wall, fact is that old fence stretches along a fair chunk of the border already. Even if, in parts, it can seem absurd. In some places, it just stops. Elsewhere, being often not quite on the actual border, it cuts through farmland. So they've left gaps to allow American farmers free passage within their own country. In yet other places, geography makes a wall seem needless, let alone problematic, not to mention unsightly. Imagine a giant wall 9 meters high cutting through this vista. So when we look out there, I see those hills, that's Mexico, right?
That's Mexico. Actually, it's Mexico 40 yards away from here.
We've hiked through all this for an hour and a half, and here we are. Where's here? Where are we?
This is the Rio Grande, and that's Mexico.
That's Mexico right there?
Right there, 20 feet away.
Bill Addington's family has ranched here for generations. Trump's wall would cut through his land, block access to the river, slash the value of his property, and rip him apart.
It really does break my heart that Americans have come so far as to be so much in fear, and some of them in hate against people that have been our neighbors here for a long time.
Add more Border Patrol agents, he says, drones even, but not a wall. No way, no how.
Building a wall over this against the will of the people that live here, such as me, will come over my dead body, to be honest.
Remember the town of Roma, where those migrants were caught in the bushes along the riverbank? Even here, there's opposition for Trump's wall. Here, abandoned life jackets, discarded clothing, and medicine left in the fanny pack for those who cross highlight migrants are a daily reality. But, say those who live here,
they don't have weapons. They don't come here trying to damage us. They have the American dream, and I don't think a wall will be enough to stop them from searching for a better life.
They're not really bad people. They're just trying to make a living. You know, I mean, like, I just think that he should at least let them, give them a chance for that. You know, like, I honestly think that it's not really fair.
just up the river, the existing wall is left a kind of no man's land. This field is north of the border, but south of the fence. and it splits a Texas golf course from the rest of the state, where, for all the naysayers we met, we found some who say to Trump 1 year later, legal immigrants are fine. Illegals, build that wall.
You don't know who they are. They could be a murderer, they could be a drug dealer, they could be a kidnapper, they could be anything. I mean, it's just stupid not to know who's coming across your borders. It's stupid. You're a stupid country if you let that happen.
Short answer on all of it, it's complicated. Go to the eastern edge of the border. This is Brownsville, Texas, some 3,000 kilometers from those prototypes in San Diego, and you can practically walk across the divide. But here, everyone just kind of lives, as Mexicans and Americans always have, along the border. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Brownsville, Texas.
The president informed us that he will not sign the bill that came over from the Senate last evening because of his legitimate concerns for border security.
The president said what the Senate sent over is just kicking the can down the road.
I agree with what they're saying in the House. This is the time we should force the Democrats to negotiate on this.
Democrats are not budging on the wall. We favor smart, effective border security, not a medieval wall.
Venezuela is at the verge of a food crisis. This started years ago when they confiscated farmlands, confiscated companies and businesses, and regulated the prices. Food is getting so scarce that there hasn't been flour available often, and therefore you see these crazy scenes when it gets available. But now, it's more and more empty shelves that meet the shoppers in the stores. There are mile-long lines to get to the stores, and sometimes when they arrive, there is nothing there to buy. This is a line in Anzoátegui last Saturday, measured to be over 1 kilometer long. In our polls, about 60% of the people say that they're unable to find the food they need. And this has led to plundering, such as here in San Felix, or here when they try to break into store to find something to eat. This was in San Felix, Bolivar State, the other weekend, and one person was shot dead by the police in the riot. Here you see Valencia to the right, where they broke in and thrown things down from the shelves. Here is a plundering of a truck that was accidented and loaded with live hens and chickens, so they just plundered that. Here was a collision with a truck carrying beer, and they stopped and plundered it right in front of the police, who did nothing to prevent it. Here is another beer truck they plundered when it arrived to deliver the merchandise. Since the price is regulated in Venezuela, it's much cheaper there than in neighboring Colombia, and therefore a lot of the merchandise and food is smuggled over the border. Here now it's getting to the point where 60% do not have food to eat in our ports. This may be very, very serious unless something is done about it.
Prepárense para un tiempo de masacre.
y de muerte.
Government shutdown, 800,000 American workers not getting paid. We're just hours from this becoming officially the longest government shutdown ever. The president says he won't give in unless he gets his $5.7 billion for his border wall. And tonight, look at this. Employees across the country now sharing images of their pay stubs. Nothing but zeros on their paychecks. And tonight, just some of the effects here. Miami Airport closing a terminal to consolidate TSA workers, since so many of them have called in sick. They're not getting paid. And tonight, air traffic controllers are now suing the Trump administration for making them work without pay while they keep passenger jets safe in the air. And the FDA stopping routine food safety inspections, no longer looking for E. coli and salmonella, among other things. Tonight, proof once again here, this is not just some political battle in Washington. These are people's lives. And here's Steve Osunsami.
The shutdown! Stop the shutdown!
After getting blank paychecks today, this was the scene in Boston, a sea of fed-up federal workers calling for an end to the shutdown. Lynn Stratton is marching in Utah, blaming everyone in Washington.
I have enough for one more mortgage payment, and I got to go to CarMax tomorrow and sell my car.
Denise Carver was furloughed from the IRS before Christmas. She's getting her family's groceries tonight at a food pantry.
We don't have any money, and we don't have much food, so we're just trying to get by.
In Walton, Kentucky, the IRS's Chris Ratchford spent all of his savings on his baby girl born premature at 26 weeks. No paycheck today, no way for them to make ends meet.
I think I cried for the first 3 days of it because I knew we were already so behind.
On Facebook, federal workers are sharing pictures of their empty pay stubs and selling what they can online. Necklaces and earring set, only worn once, need money to pay bills because of the government shutdown. Today we met the family of air traffic controller Paul Stearns. He continues to work with no pay, and in his line of work, they don't need this stress.
When we're in the tower, we want to be focused on the aircraft and the operation and the safety of the passengers. That's our #1 goal.
The McCabe's tell a familiar story, how they called the mortgage company asking for help and got none.
They said, well, we're really sorry that you're going through this, but you have 30 days to get your payment in full, and after 30 days we report you to the creditors.
Just incredible. Steve Osunsami from Atlanta again tonight. Steve, while the McCabe family was told they're not getting help, the creditors will be alerted in 30 days. We do know tonight that some companies are stepping up and offering breaks. They're trying to, at least, to help families affected by the shutdown.
That's right, David. Bank of America and Wells Fargo, for examples, are modifying loans, and Toyota is offering extensions on payments. All of this is such a reminder of just how many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. David?
Steve Osunsami with us again tonight. Thank you, Steve.
I hope this presentation has given you the warning message. Call now and get our 13-set DVD, and prepare for the end times, and learn how to prepare your spiritual walk with God, and preparing your physical health and food preparation for Dear viewers, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the red subscribe button and click the notification bell to stay updated with our product and services of Palmer International World Companies Incorporated and Palmer International Organic Health Company. Thank you so much for watching.